So one of my subscribers sent me a clip, and he made the point that the vote shamers are out already. Now, we don't know if Gillum lost the race yet. There were a bunch of ballots that came from Broward County, and those ballots were enough to essentially put in the margin of a recount. So Gillum is going to get a recount. He's going to get a second bite at the apple. But in the span of time where it was believed that Gillum lost and Gillum conceded the race, that's amazing, but Gillum lost and conceded the race, the vote shamers danced and pranced about. Farren Cousins works on The Ring of Fire, and in the clip that I'm about to show you, he's in his feelings. Looked like he's about to cry on camera. I live in Florida, man. You don't know. Nobody knows the trouble I feel in Florida. He apparently believes that it's Jimmy Dore's responsibility or Kyle Kulinski's responsibility to get his candidate elected. I have no idea why he believes that. But he does believe that. Jimmy Dore is not even a goddamn Democrat. And this idea that a non-Democrat should work to get the Democrat elected is lunacy. It's lunacy. But they believe this stuff. As if somehow Jimmy Dore is supposedly to work to get Democrats elected. Not to mention, in the clip, from the standpoint of him bringing up Cal, he's even wrong from the standpoint of bringing up Cal. So, and just to be clear, he's apologized for this, and I'm going to show you the tweet by which he apologized. There's still differences in opinion from him and Cal. I'm going to show you Cal's response, but I'm going to show you what he says, or a clip of what he says first, so you can get an idea of where we're standing here. Look, this show wanted Gillum to get elected. I've said it more than once. I wanted him to win, and God knows I wanted to bathe in the concession speech of Ted Cruz. Both are not perfect candidates. But yes, in those cases, I thought those moved the ball forward enough, especially in the context of the person who they were running against, that Gillum, to some degree, would have been trapped in the language to which he used to run that campaign. Meaning, it would be difficult for him to pull back, but so much. And if he did pull back that much, in the next 4 years, I probably would have been against him and wanted him to fail miserably, regardless of who was on the other side. But I was willing to give him a chance on this because it did look like that's where he was going. The problem is, he pivoted to the right to some degree. Taking pictures with Cory Booker, taking pictures with Hillary Clinton, campaigning with Hillary Clinton. That looks bad, especially to a lefty base, some of which has woken up and has realized that they were the politically abused spouse of the Democratic Party, and in a turn of the worm, we're paying attention. No más. No more. Vigilant in regards to looking at what the person is saying, the semantics, what they're tweeting, what they're putting out. And when it seemed like he deviated from the Medicare for All, that he was sheepish about it. When it seemed like in the campaign, in one of the debates, he would pull back from this idea of Medicare for All. People notice. They're not wrong for noticing. People have different things that they want to accomplish in the world. People have different things that they're trying to see take place. And if a candidate who ran as a flaming lefty in the primary seemed to pull back to the right, then they can look at previous candidates who lied to them, who ran an expansive campaign that turned out not to be what they said they were. And they can look back at those things and say, no mas. I don't trust it. No mas. They're not wrong for that. They're not wrong for that at all. They may be, let's say, overly eager, but wrong? No. It is an environment that's been created based on the way the Democratic Party has ran for the last 20, 30 years. They're creatures of their environment. In this case, I'll put Jimmy Dore in this category. He's not wrong. He's not even a Democrat. Why on earth would he work to get a Democrat elected? Especially when it seems like that particular Democrat deviated from where he originally started. Kyle, for his case, actually did support Gillum. He made one video critical of Gillum, but even in that video was for Gillum. Let's listen to Farron make his point. I remember this guy on Ring of Fire. I've seen some of his videos prior. I would consider him in my sandbox, but on this, I think his anger and rage, and he probably cried at home, is misplaced. Let's take a look.
And here's the thing that's really pissing me off, and that comes back to the state of Florida. Andrew Gillum. Gillum campaigned with Hillary Clinton. Bernie Sanders also came down to the state to rally for him, campaign for him. Kamala Harris, Joe Biden at one point was here. Basically, all the people who you think might run for president in 2020, they all came down here to Florida to campaign for Andrew Gillum. You had people out there, out not in Florida, you know, those outsiders who came and fucked up our election for us.
Does he only talk about events in Florida? I could be wrong on this, but I would wager dollars to donuts that he covers things that go beyond the state of Florida. Right off the bat, this is a nonsense point. But let's keep on, not to mention a hypocritical point. If you cover one show that will beyond the borders of Florida, then that impeaches what you just said. People can criticize or talk about the elements of your state of Florida. That point make no sense, but again, he's in his feelings. Let's keep going.
People out there spreading nonsense that, oh, Andrew Gillum's backed off. He's not a progressive anymore. He doesn't support Medicare for all anymore. He changed his talking point in one friggin' tweet, so now we don't support him. I'm not voting for.
It went beyond one tweet. In the debate also, it went beyond one tweet. But fair enough. Let's keep going. I don't want to keep breaking up his point.
For him anymore. Thanks for pointing this out. People like Jimmy Dore and Kyle Kulinski and all you people who have your litmus test and you screwed with a state that you don't live in and you don't understand.
You mean people with values? With values? That have things that they want to accomplish in the world? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, people have litmus tests. People have things that they want to accomplish in the world. That varies from person to person. And there'll be some people which he doesn't fit that litmus test. It is the responsibility of the candidate to get those people, not the responsibility of those people to just automatically throw away whatever value system they have and support the candidate. And I'm sorry, to some degree, the Democratic Party has propagated this. They've abandoned their base over and over and over again. You can imagine that the base at a certain point gets a little itchy about that. And, you know, forgive them for being a little overly eager in matters like this. The only thing that we have to go on is the trust within the candidate. Meaning we have to look at and believe what the candidate is saying, that the candidate actually wants to accomplish that. The beauty of Sanders was that he had 40 years of saying the exact same thing. He didn't deviate, he didn't hedge. Sanders was Sanders. You ask him what he wants to accomplish and he'll spend 40 minutes telling you. And it would be the same thing that he said 20 years ago. There was trust. Part of the thing that people loved about him was his earnestness and trust. I don't Gillum from a hole in the wall. The only thing that I can trust with Gillum is what, I have to either believe what he's saying or not. And if it seems like there's hedge, well, you have 20, 30 years of Democrats that have hedged and that have done the same thing. You have a president that screamed hope and change to some degree and then got in office and hedged. Why wouldn't people be, let's say, a little sensitive in this point? And why wouldn't they be, let's say, ever vigilant when previous injury has taken place? He's in his feelings. Let's keep going.
Let me make this like so friggin' clear for you idiots. I have lived here my whole life, and I have lived in one of the reddest parts of the state of Florida for my entire life. And both Bill Nelson and Andrew Gillum were winning their elections until this little area where I live, unfortunately, till they started counting those votes. And this solidly red area is what put them over the top. It wasn't because he wasn't progressive enough. It was because this area is solidly Republican, hugely racist. According to the Southern Poverty Law Center, we have a huge concentration of hate groups in this area. So you look at that and you tell me that a black Democrat could have won over those people by being, quote, more progressive, which he already was. You just misconstrued what he said because it didn't fit in what your ideal of a candidate has to be.
Two points. Anybody can have their own ideal of a candidate. It's their choice. You can disagree with that, but it's their choice. They come up with the characterization of the person who they're willing to vote for. Sometimes it's lesser evil, sometimes it's not. Sometimes you look at one candidate, specifically of the candidate, and have a red line in regards to the things that you're willing to accept in a particular candidate. It is choice. Now, you may not necessarily like that choice, you may not necessarily agree with that choice, but it is choice. A person who's not a Democrat may have a different spectrum that they're willing to vote for, as opposed to somebody who is a Democrat and who's willing to work within the party politic body. Second point. The races, the solid races, you can't have it both ways. Either Jimmy Dore and Cal Kulinski came to Florida and quote unquote fucked it up, or a black candidate was never going to get the races, in which case he wasn't going to win. Can't have it both ways. Now, I would argue that yes, there are a group of people who are brutally racist and who you would never get. It doesn't matter what comes out of his mouth. And so, he put a helmet on and be a Klan member as long as they don't know he's black, maybe. But under normal circumstances, it doesn't matter what he say. So I agree with you on that point. But as I've made the point over and over and over again, even racist people want clean air. Even racist people want decent jobs. You have 70% of the population that wants health care at this point. 50-something% of Republicans. I mean, you can go down the line. For college, all of these things are popular ideas. There's no need to run away from those ideas. There is a spectrum of people that you would never get. Take them off the table. But there's also a spectrum of people that you would get. Which is the argument, and which is the point. Now, you can disagree with that, but I think that's true. It's not like the spectrum of races is all on one side. You have a spectrum. And within that spectrum, there'll be a certain degree that says, you know what, I like these programs also. I don't necessarily care that the guy's black and get over the fact he's black. I'm going to vote for him. Not the hardcore, but whatever that number is, you should try to get. Look, at some point, these people are going to start blaming the candidate for their failings, as opposed to blaming everybody else. I'm sorry that your candidate might lose. Your candidate got 1 point something more votes than the other centrist Democrats. So even running as a lefty, he's done better than many of them. I would have voted for him if I lived in Florida. This show has supported him. And let's be clear, if I'm not mistaken, he was being dogged by corruption charges. So it's not like it's just Jimmy Dore's fault and Jimmy Dore's fucking it up. There was stuff that was going on in Florida that was pertinent to Andrew Gillum that wasn't necessarily making national attention. That was dogging Andrew Gillum. But beyond that, let's hear Cal. Cal responds to this, and he makes two really good points.
So thank you. Thank you to those people who did that and left us with at least 4 years of Ron DeSantis as our governor, a guy who is Donald Trump light.
So first of all, let's be super clear. I never, ever, ever said don't vote for Andrew Gillum. And I never would say that because I think that's sheer lunacy. In fact, quite the opposite. Take a look at this. I tweeted this on the day of the election. I said, good luck to every Justice Democrat candidate and good luck to all the solid candidates in tight races. And I listed a bunch of them. I said, Richard Ojeda, Beto O'Rourke, Stacey Abrams, Andrew Gillum, Tim Canova, Cara Eastman, Amar Campanajjar, Iron Stash, Christine Halquist, Ben Jealous. So it literally is the opposite. So this is a case of just, hey, you're incorrect on the facts. Now, furthermore, I did a grand total of 4 segments on Andrew Gillum. 2 of them were 100% positive. In fact, one of them I would go as far as to call it fawning, because Gillum was grilled on CNN on the issue of Medicare for All, and CNN was doing their hack bullshit non-journalism and trying to go after the idea of Medicare for All. So it was 100% on the side of Andrew Gillum. So 2 100% positive segments. One segment I would say was about 75% positive. There was criticism of him in the segment, but it still, the overall tone and the overall point was still very positive for Andrew Gillum. And then the one segment that I did that was negative was about him campaigning with Hillary Clinton and Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and his election strategy being a clear pivot to the right. And yes, I was very critical of him in that segment, but I made crystal clear, and if you go back and you watch it, it'll be so obvious that I said he's still the best candidate and I want him to win.
How did you include Cal Kulinski in that rant and miss that point? How do you frame a rant in this way and entirely miss that point? That the overwhelming majority of the videos that Cal put out was favorable to Gillum. And not just favorable, even on election day, the tweet that he puts out is favorable to Gillum. Pursuant to that, Farrell's apologized. I had a lengthy discussion with Kyle Kulinski and realized I lumped him in with a group that I should not have. He's explained his positions, and I have, and though we disagree to an extent, I do apologize for misinterpreting his intentions. Good on you. Good on you. So this was nonsense. Cal has another point in this, but this video is going long, and I love this point, so I'm going to play this point even though this video is going long.
Sometimes when I tell people this, they don't necessarily get exactly what I'm saying. I'm dead serious about this point, that the general election pivot has to die. It has to die. Because this is when Democrats lose. Look at what Trump did. Leading up to the election, he went right back to shore up his base with the anti-immigrant fear-mongering endlessly. Now, we obviously despise that and hate that and think it's immoral and unethical and wrong on a policy level and all that stuff, obviously. But politics 101 is don't abandon your base. And that's exactly what the Republicans never do. That's exactly what the Democrats always do. So I would love it in the final week up to a general election. What the Democrats should do is do a giant national campaign where they're crystal clear about, here's our agenda, just like the right is doing with, oh my God, the caravan, and we hate brown people. Yeah, fuck you. Here's our ideas. We want Medicare for all. We want free college. We want a living wage. And these are the things we're going to focus on. And we're going to do a national campaign about this. We're going to run ads. We're going to have every elected Democrat come out there and say, this is what the Democrats who are running are for. And listen, that's my point, is it's not 1992 anymore. The centrism strategy is a proven failure. So I'm serious about this shit. If I'm advising these campaigns, I'm 100%, if anything, I'm telling them, oh, when we get to the general election, run further to the left. At the very least, if Andrew Gillum wouldn't have won doing my preferred strategy, and listen, maybe it's possible, although healthcare is literally the number one issue that people cited in exit polls, so I tend to think if you pushed Medicare for all really strongly, you could have edged it out. But listen, if he wouldn't have won, at the very least, I think he would have picked up more votes.
It's hard to know. Maybe, maybe not. I haven't heard Dore's commentary on this. I don't even know if Dore is going to make a commentary on it. The voter shaming thing has to stop. I mean, I get it that you want people to vote for your candidate. Fair enough. But this idea where you're attacking people who are in your sandbox, who are sick and tired of politics as usual, where they say one thing and do something else. And then you're mad at the people who kind of point that out. They're not the problem in this. I'm sorry, they're not the problem. So I like Cal's response. I also like this thing of the pivot has to die. And again, this is coming from somebody who supported Gillum, who wanted him to win that race, and also who was hurt and crushed when Beto lost. Because I wanted Beto to win also. But Farren Cousins, he apologized, so the world is good. These two still have disagreements. This video from Cal is like 20 minutes, so it's a longer response video. But another division on the left, apparently, where some people who are Democrats don't understand why other people don't vote for Democrats. So bizarre. It's utterly bizarre.